there was a season when we mothers can get so focused on just every single day things. The kids, the family, the cooking, the cleaning, the dogs, the work. You're just so like, this is all I can handle. I can't even think about next week. I can't even think about next year. But there's going to be a time when you're just going to have to, your spouse, husbands, you need to take your wife away. Even if she doesn't want to.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, thank you for joining I'm Her podcast. I thank you for tuning in to part 2 of parenting with all my young lady staff on our young women, young mothers that's on our staff. And I know this is going to really, really help you, give you a lot of wisdom and also just a reality check that we are normal and we are okay and we're just learning and growing. So enjoy the next podcast.
I'm thinking about my parents or moms and dads who are empty nesters now, and maybe they didn't make their marriage a priority and it was more of the kids, raising all the kids, and now they're out of the house and now
it's
as
them.
a mom, what do I do? Yeah. So what?
It's true. And you don't want to be at that place. Honestly, you guys are young mothers. Your goal is not to just get your kids out of the house and go to college and get married. That's just the process. That's just part of raising a kid. But your marriage is your first priority.
Right.
Is growing in your marriage, growing in your relationship with your spouse, and getting to know him, growing and making mistakes and changing and being formed as you're going through it, your seasons, because the guy you marry is not going to be the same guy when your kids leave the house.
Yeah, true.
He's going to be a better man. He'll be a better father.
Right.
But he's going to be a different man.
Yeah.
If you guys allow each other space to grow and to become. And that you kept each other a priority in front of your kids as well as to each other. And one of the things I mentioned way back in a lot of my podcasts or that there was a season when we mothers can get so focused on just every single day things. The kids, the family, the cooking, the cleaning, the dogs, the work. You're just so like, this is all I can handle. I can't even think about next week. I can't even think about next year. But there's going to be a time when you're just going to have to, your spouse, husbands, you need to take your wife away. Even if she doesn't want to.
Yeah.
Even if you have to plan a trip or a getaway to Waikiki or getaway to a hotel, and you just set up somebody who can take your kid overnight and just take you away. Like Mike did that for me when I think Becca was my first birth child, right? When she was maybe 9 months old or something like that. And I remember we had a plans to go out for dinner. And this girl, Megan, shows up. I was like, hey, Megan, thank you so much. We'll be home in a couple hours. And she's like, okay, I'll see you tomorrow. I'm like, no. I'm seeing you in a couple hours. We'll be back. She's like, I'll see you tomorrow. And I looked at my husband. He had my bags packed. And we were staying at a hotel in Waikiki.
Oh.
Was I happy? No. I was thinking of everything that should have happened if I were to leave my child. But I had to leave because I came to a place I had to choose.
Right.
Do I choose my husband or do I choose my kids? And he's waiting for an answer.
Right.
Let's say if I backed out.
Yeah.
And I said, no, I'm adamant. No, I am not leaving. Sorry, Megan, you can go home. How would I have made my husband feel?
Yeah.
Like all that planning, all that effort to try to take me away. And I just basically put a damper on his husband, my husband, his love for me, and so I knew, so you're going to have a lot of those moments when you're going to just have to like hold your words because you know what you're supposed to do and you're just going to have to swallow it.
Yeah.
Okay. And just say, okay.
Okay.
And you just go.
Right.
Even though you'll be thinking about your child all night as you're having sex. But you'll be happy when you wake up in the morning, have not had to breastfeed, had not had to wake up to change a diaper or hear a baby crying. You're going to go, this was nice.
Yeah.
Because when you go back home, back to your same old, same old. So it's kind of like great. 'Cause it's like these little breaks gets you out of your cycle.
Right. Yeah.
And you need to come out of your good cycle
Right.
every so often just to remind yourself, I have a husband.
It's good.
Yeah.
That's so good.
To follow up with that, Pastor Lisa, you talked a little about it, but there's that frustration,
Yeah.
I would say, or that kind of builds up when you first give birth, right? And like,
Yes.
then your husband goes back to work,
Uh-huh.
and your husband gets to do his things while you
Yes.
have to stay home with the baby.
I know.
And like, how do you manage that? How do you temper your expectations and also make sure like you don't grow resentment?
I know. You do. That's natural. You will resent him, first of all, for pregnating you. And then the second thing you'll do is you'll blame him because he didn't carry the baby. He didn't even give birth. He didn't do nothing while you were pushing, while he was watching basketball, and while he went out to the cafeteria and he had a great mixed plate while you could not have any food. There is a lot. And I think you guys are even in that season where you're comparing who works harder. I do this. Well, I do this. Don't you? How could you not? What you're saying? You know, you're having these arguments. I know.
Right.
I know. I've been there. And sometimes some of us, when we're not verbalizing it, we keep it in our thoughts.
Right.
But it comes out in our attitude. It comes out in our answers to our spouse. And he's probably thinking, great, what is her problem? What's going on? And so it's really just trying to be intentional, and you have to not forget that this is a teamwork, and you have to verbalize things, you have to share, and it's really having a lot of talks. And I remember grumbling about Mike wanting to play basketball. Okay. He would play basketball. I'd be like, wow, jeez, I wish I could go and just take a ball and just go to the gym and just say bye-bye. It's like he doesn't have to plan. He doesn't have to plan about diapers and baby snacks and food. And you're like, oh, you're going out again? Oh, okay. I'm here cooking and feeding. And you just start resenting that he has a life and you don't have a life. That's basically what you're saying.
Right. Yeah.
How come you get to have a life and I don't? But that's actually not the truth, because you do have a life. You have a new life.
Right. So good.
That is attached to your hips for the next several years. And it has to be attached to somebody's hip. Okay. It chooses to be attached to yours. Okay. And your husband, it is attached to him too. But it's for some reason, it just depends on your husband. I don't know. You know, there are husbands that are like into everything.
Right.
And some husbands are clueless. And then there's husbands who are active and some are semi-active. I don't know. It just depends what you guys want. I do see a lot of young parents that are like 50-50. It's like you guys break everything down to 50-50. It's almost like you have a chart. Well, I got this responsibilities and you have this responsibilities. And it's almost like we can't work together to try to give and take. Okay. And it's like a checking account, like your checking account, my checking account. And what do we say about checking accounts? Our checking account should blend and be our checking account. So it's the same with our child. This is our kid. This is how we want to raise our kid. Yes, I, as a mother, will do majority of it because this is the season.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually, right, he will have to. And I remember complaining about his basketball, and I remember his supervisor at that time would come to me and say, "Hey, you know, Lisa, he would be a better husband if he goes out and plays basketball." And I looked at him and I wanted to punch him. I wanted to punch him because I thought, you don't know what it's like in this house. How dare you? So you're basically telling me, and is my husband complaining to you? Like I'm complaining about him? And it's like, you just want to go, how dare you talk about me? And so, and I remember Mike told me I have to, and his supervisor said he has to get some relief to be a better husband because he needs it, because the stress that he carries.
Right.
And it always comes back to, well, what about me? What about what I need? The thing is, you always had a need, but you're not vocalizing your need. You're not telling your husband what you need.
Wow. Yeah.
And you need to define, what do I need?
Yeah.
Is it 30 minutes? Is it 1 hour that I need to get away? I need to go get a massage. I need to go get a pedicure. I need to go see a friend for lunch. I want to put makeup. I want to dress up. I want to just get out. But a lot of times, and I'm like fault too, is I didn't do it because I felt guilty, or I felt I was not doing my job if I wanted something for myself, but I needed it. There's a difference. He needs it. You need it.
Yeah.
Even if you didn't do nothing, okay, for an hour,
Right.
and you just close the door and you just watch your little movie, or you just do whatever you want, read a book. If it's just leave me alone for 1 hour, then at least you've done something for yourself.
Yeah.
But if you're not vocalizing it,
It's good.
then it's all about him.
Right.
But you always had a choice
True.
to speak up.
Yeah.
That's a big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. But if you have a husband who's like, never gives you that time, then you guys really need somebody to talk to him. Honestly, like there's got to be mentors in your lives that you can talk to,
That's good.
that can speak into each of you. It's not just one-sided.
Yeah.
I think following up on that, so, you know, the relationship dynamic of your marriage shifts so much, like almost immediately, right? And there is that resentment that you're facing and everything. It all boils down to communication.
Yes.
And so, like, I'm working on communication. It's a constant work in progress. But now I've gotten to the point that it's like, okay, I am verbalizing. And now I feel like all I do is complain to you. All I do is say, oh, I need this. I need that. I'm struggling here. Can you do this already? No. And then I'm like, oh, man, I must be a drag to live with. Do you have any tips on communicating effectively, right? So we can get our husbands on board and we can work well together, but I don't want it to weigh on our relationship. I want it to help our relationship thrive.
Yeah.
So any tips there?
People would tell us when you go on dates, these are 3 rules. You can't talk about your kids. You can't talk about work. And you can't talk about complaining. You can't complain.
Oh gosh.
Wow, what do you talk about then?
What do you talk about, right?
Conversation starter.
I know. So,
Yeah, maybe we need a
Hi,
conversation
how's your day?
starter in the show notes.
Yeah.
so you know, bring a couple questions if you have to. If you're, it's like, I hate playing games, but like bring 3 questions to the table, each one of you, that doesn't pertain to kids, doesn't pertain to work, that doesn't pertain to something that needs to be done. It's doable. Like, right? Communication is all about trying to figure out how can we have a better communication. And you're going to, that's, if you start there and you work at it every single year, then when your kids are done out of your house, you're doing basically what you're doing. You've communicated from way back, and now you're presently still talking.
Yeah.
But you're growing.
Yeah.
So It is hard. It's hard when the baby is screaming and you're trying, and when a baby scream brings tension in a home. Okay.
Yes.
Imagine when they stop screaming and they start talking and yelling and complaining with words, and you have a couple of them doing the same thing.
Yep.
And you have your own complaints,
Mm-hmm.
and your whole household is now tense.
Chaos.
Okay. You will have that. You will have those days. In fact, I had one this morning. And, but I've learned how to just go, don't take it in, don't take it all in. Just, it's almost like I feel like there's this place where you can choose to allow things in your brain and allow things not in your brain.
Right.
Like, almost like you can put a stop
Right.
to how deep it goes into your thoughts.
Right. That's good.
It's like fasting, right?
Right.
You can start learning. Fasting is to teach you how to learn how to deny your needs. It's the same thing with these thoughts, these complaints. Like, you have to learn how to say enough. No. I am not going there. I'm not going to complain about my husband today. This is the day I will not say anything negative to my husband today. If I'm going to think of a complaint, I'm going to think of something positive to say instead of a complaint. I'm going to choose to find something good to say.
Right.
You just have to control your thoughts.
Yeah.
And you have to choose this day what you're going to say. Because when you come into a house, everybody who comes back home has to choose how they're going to enter into your house,
Yeah.
right? You're going to teach your kids the same way. When he comes in complaining, you're like, no. Go back out. Think about what you're going to say. Walk back in. But come in with a smile instead of a frown.
Yeah.
And see how it changes the atmosphere.
It's good.
How are you going to learn how to change your atmosphere? Because your kids know what kind of atmosphere you're creating.
Yeah.
If all you ever do is fight, complain, talk negative, and your house is always tense,
Yeah.
your kids will be tense. It's unusual. It's amazing. It's how you create the atmosphere. But it's not there. There's no perfect atmosphere,
Right.
you know. And there's always someone in your relationship, whether it's you or your spouse or your kids, that have wisdom that will say, hey, stop. We need to stop and pray right now. And it's being willing to submit yourself and go, all right, I'm willing to submit my complaint right now.
Right.
It's not worth it. Or my aggravation or my frustration. I need to just stop. And I hate it. Sometimes I'm like, you know? But you're going to have to learn how to navigate your emotions and navigate your conversations. Because sometimes you're going to just have a bad day, a bad week. And you're going to find those times to have those discussions. And sometimes it's never the perfect timing. When you want to bring up a complaint, right?
Yeah.
It's
It's never the right time.
Never the right time.
Great time for an argument.
It's always a great time for an argument. But you have to talk it out.
Right.
There's times when you just have to state your feelings. You have to state what is right, what is wrong. And you just have to do it, you know, for the sake of change.
Right.
Because there has to be change. Communication exists for change.
Yeah. That's good.
Okay. So, but you have to weigh it too, because we tend to be more complainers than we are uplifters. You have to say, okay, did I use up my 10 complaints and I've given only one great word of affirmation? Okay, maybe I need to raise up 5 more affirmations and less 5 complaints.
It's good.
Then I'm balancing it out. So it doesn't always sound like this. So you have to measure, am I sounding more like I'm complaining all the time? Or am I bringing up my affirmation, my encouraging words? Yeah. And I think we can all work at that in any in any relationship.
Yes.
Okay, Pastor Isla, maybe the final question about like marriage and parenting, but did you guys have like rules around parenting for yourselves? Like a rule might have been don't fight in front of the kids. stuff like
we
that.
blew that one.
Okay.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes. We never use the word divorce, even in our own arguments, right? Or just, I hate you, or just something that can be very detrimental.
Yeah.
Definitely, we always talked in our bedroom with the doors locked, right? Or we won't talk when the kids are home. Or if the kids were home, right, when they're young, you can't just leave them alone.
Yeah.
It can't be helped sometimes, okay? Temper rises, shouts and raising of voices. You know, they have to see something that's normal and healthy,
Right.
but they need to see a balance as well. Like, oh, yeah, I've seen them fight. Oh, yeah, I've seen them argue.
Right.
Oh, but I've seen them hug and kiss and loving each other a lot. I see dad always loving mom, saying how much he loves her.
Right.
I see mom, cooking for him. I see mom. So they see that it's normal, but it's just healthy. They've seen them how to resolve a conflict in front of them. They've seen them. But then there's the other extreme when it gets to the point of blow ups all the time, the swearing, the hitting, the slamming of doors, the slamming of walls, There's that portion that terrifies kids.
Right.
Okay. Or a parent walks out and say, I'm done. I want to do, things that are being said. And kids, honestly, it's like dropping them off to preschool, dropping them off to children's church. They may go to class crying, saying, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. But it's good for them. So you're going to drop them off, but you're always going to say, we will be back.
Right.
And even if the volunteer takes your kid and said, it's going to be okay, you remind your child, I will be back. That just indicates to your child, she means what she says.
Right.
He means what they say. Even though I don't like it, but they're always going to come back for me.
Yeah.
Right.
It's the same with marriage. It's like, in counseling, they'll tell you, it's okay if you want to say, I need a break. I need to get out for an hour or two. I need to cool off.
Right.
But I will be back. It's the same thing.
Right.
If you have a heated discussion, somebody's got to say, you guys have to know those rules. If you need to say, I need to get out, I need some space, this is the rule, but you come back in 2 hours. It's never this, leave it, whatever. But the word divorce should never be in your vocabulary when you're arguing, or I'm done, but the thing is, we've said that before. We will have seasons and times when we have said that. And of course, we have to put our head down and ask for forgiveness.
Right.
And I think it's choosing, and that's another rule, is if you're wrong, you ask for forgiveness. That's a normal thing that happens in every, there's times when, if you've done it in front of your kids, I've seen Mike tell the kids, hey, will you please forgive me for I was very angry and I shouldn't have said this. I shouldn't have whatever.
So good.
Will you please forgive me? And the kids be like, okay, like, all right, whatever. So I wasn't listening. And we're like, yeah, right. But it teaches them that this is how it can be bad, but it can get better. This is how it gets better. So you're modeling everything out.
Right.
You cannot hide everything.
Right.
But you do have to use wisdom. And if you seem to be doing a lot of fighting in front of your kids, a lot of fighting, it is unhealthy. You need to get some counseling. You need to get some marriage counseling. You need to be part of a connect group. And you really need accountability, because that's not normal. And it does affect the kids.
Right.
Like when you wonder why kids are acting out in school, it's because something is not happening. Something is happening at home.
Right.
Or something is role modeled. You'll be surprised how much your kids are modeling after you and what you say. Seriously? I know Aurora has been like sassing back to her mom saying, seriously? And I said, well, that sounds like you, Shayna. But they do. You're the only models that they have.
Right.
And how you model Christ in front of them, how you model his love, his grace. I think sometimes grace is not modeled enough in a home.
So good.
Grace has to be modeled that we all will fall short. But because of God's grace, because of God's forgiveness, we can operate in love because that's what love is all about. Like, and I think you'll grow in this as you go through your conflicts, as you go through your seasons of frustrations, of your, holding things against each other. But definitely, if you come back to a place of love, I love my husband. I love my family. I love what we have. I love that we are a family.
Yeah.
I love that I chose you. I love that we're going to build this new life together. That's what keeps it together. Because you have to, and you got to keep growing your love for each other,
Right.
for your spouse, for your kids, because they're going to hurt you. They will. Okay. And you're going to hurt them. But I think if we always choose to say, but we're going to be okay. And I think we always would say that to each other. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Even though you're like, no, it's not. But you have to believe for it.
Yeah.
That things will smooth out. And then you start all over again. You start all over again. And then when you add another child into your life, you add another baby, okay? You're not going to add another spouse, okay? I'm telling you that.
True.
You're
It's just
adding
babies.
another
Set up.
baby. You're adding another member into your family. You may add another mother-in-law. You may add someone back in. You know what I mean? It's like God's going to keep adding and adding into your life. It's never just you 3 or never just you 4 or never just you 5, It's learning to teach your kids. We're all about doing life together.
Yeah.
Because eventually your kids will bring home boyfriends, girlfriends, okay? And then eventually you'll be married. Your child will be married, and now their family is your family. Like,
Right.
your family is going to grow, and that's what we always pray for generations to come. And you chose who you married, okay? God gave you choices. Remember that. You chose your husband because you're called to your husbands.
Yes.
And now God has blessed your womb with a child. And now this is your child. And this is not just your child, okay? It's your husband and your child.
Right.
You have to remember that.
Right.
And I think one of the last thing I kind of want to share was about how allow each parent to be a parent. It's not always the mom as the parent.
Right.
Your husband also has wisdom and discernment of your child. He knows your child. I know. You be surprised. So, there's moms that set up everything. Wake up. This is what she eats. This is the schedule. You change the diaper when he or she wakes up. And then you put her on the seat. And then you get your food all prepped up. And it's all laid out, and she wants her cereal on her left side. She wants her fruits on her right side. Okay? And then when it's dad's turn, it's all messed up. He feeds her first and not change the diaper. And then the fruits is on a separate bowl. And the cereal, he doesn't give him the right cereal. But it's okay.
Yeah.
You have to remember he has a relationship. And your child is going to one day go, yeah, mom would always feed us granola, but dad would always feed us Fruit Loops, but that's what they're going to remember. And you want them to remember them the way they remember it.
Yeah.
You don't want them to remember it all Fruit Loops.
Yeah.
That's all we had. My dad and mom always just gives us Fruit Loops. That's kind of boring. There's no flavors. Your husband has a flavor, mom has a flavor, and they want to talk about these different flavors that they've been given.
Yeah.
So stop trying to have your spouse parent the way you parent. Yes, there are similar things to parent together.
Right.
Rules, guidelines, schedules.
Right.
When it comes to clothing, right? We always say when the dad dresses them, you can tell, right? But that's the fun part of it,
Right.
right? You're going to look back at that picture and go, yes, that was a day that dad dressed my child.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things. It is what it is. And they're still alive, aren't they? They're still breathing.
It's so encouraging.
They're still breathing. You're not raising a perfect family. You're just raising a child that's going to grow into becoming who she is God called them to be. So that's what I've learned over the last 30 years of our marriage. And each child is different. And you have to get to know each child's gifts and talents and strengths and weaknesses and learning how to pull it out from each one of them.
Right.
And allow both parents to parent the kid. And if, and I know I'm talking to so many young mothers, and sometimes you're a single mom or you're a blended family, or even you've just separated, or your spouse just left, or you guys got a divorce, so now you're parenting in two different homes. It still can work. Yeah. It still can work. And you still have to make it a priority to make sure that you just do your part and your spouse does his part, and for the sake of the kids, and just do your best, just watch what influences that you bring into the family, into your marriage, into your kids. Just protect them at all costs, especially at such a time as this, and as every generation would say about every other generation, when it was like in our generation, and you're going to say the same thing to the next generation. Well, during my generation, but at the end of the day, it's still the same. You protect your kids at all costs,
Right.
and you raise them up in God-fearing and loving people, loving God, and loving the church, and loving people. So bless you, young moms. Okay, you're gonna have fun, laugh more, smile more, take care of yourself more,
Yes.
and find time for yourself to relax and love on your husband, and be thankful for your husband, and be thankful for what you have and not what you don't have.
Right.
That's good.
All right. So I'm going to pray for you guys. All right. Lord, I just thank you so much, Lord, for each and every mom, Lord, especially the young moms here, Lord, or first-time moms, or just moms with really young ones who having to navigate, Lord, through just a season where they're so needed every single day, Lord, by their baby, by their child, by their husbands, by their demands of their jobs, and just everything that is demanding of them. And how you created us as women to be carriers, and that you've given us abilities and giftings, Lord, to do it all. But help us to remember, Lord, that we can't do anything without you, and that we can do all things in your name. So I pray for every one of us, Lord, that we do what we are called to do, but do it with grace, do it with love, and not in perfection, but in ways that we are learning and growing and becoming. So I just pray, Lord, for this generation of moms, that they would raise up godly men and women, Lord,
Yes, God.
men and women that would change this world, that would stand for Jesus. And I pray you hedge your protection upon every one of our children and every marriage that is represented here. So we thank you, Lord, and we glorify your name, because it is you that we have what we have. In the name of Jesus, amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much, Pastor Lisa.
You're
For all your
welcome.
wisdom.
You're welcome.
We need it.
I hope this helps. So for all you listeners, thank you so much for joining us on I Am Her podcast. There are 2 parts to this message. Come listen to it. Come download the app. And we're looking forward to seeing you and to the next podcast that we do. Who knows what we're going to do? But we love you, and God bless you. And don't forget to sign up for the Arise Conference 2024.